Absurdity is a fundamental concept in understanding the human condition in the world. It emerges from the conflict between the intrinsic human need for meaning and a universe that appears to lack any inherent purpose or direction. Humans are naturally inclined to seek answers to the core questions of existence: why we are here, what life means, and how we should cope with suffering and death. Yet the brutal, indifferent reality of the world offers no satisfactory answers to these questions. This contradiction gives rise to the experience of absurdity, a condition in which the individual perceives the universe as devoid of meaning, governed not by order or intention, but by random and meaningless events. Confronted with this existential void, the human mind is often left in confusion, overwhelmed by a sense of anxiety and despair. On the other hand, alienation, as a direct consequence of confronting absurdity, is the state in which an individual feels estranged from the world, from others, and even from themselves. A person who becomes aware of the meaninglessness of existence finds themselves unable to operate within the conventional values and systems of society. They feel as though no real connection exists between themselves and the world around them, not even through language, which is traditionally seen as a tool for communication and understanding. Language, in this context, seems insufficient. Alienation leads not just to emotional isolation, but to philosophical solitude, a key theme in 20th century literature and existential philosophy, especially within absurdist works. Albert Camus' novel The Stranger, published in 1942, stands as one of the most important philosophical literary works of the 20th century. It quickly established itself as a foundational text exploring the human condition in a meaningless universe. Written in a clear and neutral tone, the novel tells the story of Meursault, a man who responds to life's events with marked indifference. At the beginning of the novel, Meursault receives the news of his mother's death, but reacts with cold detachment. Even during her funeral, he fails to display any of the socially expected emotions. The novel is structured in two parts. The first part details Meursault's daily life, starting with the famous line, "Mother died today," a sentence that reflects his emotional detachment from his mother's death, and more broadly, from love, friendship, and social responsibility. The second part begins with Meursault's murder of an Arab man, and follows the legal proceedings that ensue. In the trial, the focus shifts from the act of murder itself to Meursault's character and his disregard for social norms. His crime, more than the killing, is his ruthless honesty and his total alienation from societal expectations. While most people hide behind pretense to give life meaning, Meursault confronts the truth of absurdity with no disguise. When asked in court why he committed the murder, he replies, "Because of the sun." For the court, this makes no rational sense. It encounters a man alien to both morality and cultural logic, a man who committed neither premeditated nor accidental murder in any conventional sense. Beyond the plot, the narrative structure reflects Meursault's emotional distance. Camus's use of plain language and objective description positions the reader inside Meursault's detached perspective. Gradually, Meursault's emotional state becomes the focal point, pushing the reader to reflect on the human relationship with the universe. This stylistic choice, in contrast to typical emotionally driven storytelling, helps emphasize the themes of absurdity and alienation. The Stranger is rich in symbolism, which deepens its philosophical and existential layers. One of the most prominent recurring symbols is the sun, which plays a crucial and oppressive role in key scenes, such as the funeral and the murder. The blinding, scorching sun represents the unforgiving force of reality and nature, inescapable and indifferent. Other symbolic elements include the sea and the courtroom. The courtroom, in particular, symbolizes a society that, instead of trying to understand reality, judges and condemns difference. It becomes the instrument by which society tries to execute Meursault, not for his crime, but because he embodies the threat of absurdism. This tension between free nature and restricted society lies at the center of the novel's philosophical framework, placing Meursault in direct conflict with a merciless world. Camus also enriches the symbolic fabric of the novel through the contrast of color and space. Cold, lifeless tones of urban life stand in opposition to the warm, intense colors of the beach and sun, highlighting the dichotomy between natural and human realms. This contrast reflects Meursault's internal struggle between surrendering to harsh realities and yearning for personal freedom. The philosophy of absurdism, which Camus famously articulated, finds its purest expression in The Stranger. Absurdism posits that the universe lacks inherent meaning and that humans must accept this truth without illusion or delusion. Meursault becomes the archetype of the absurd hero, a man who does not believe in God, traditional morality, or hope for a better future. His reactions to death, violence, and judgment are not guided by convention, but by an unfiltered encounter with reality. Meursault does not, like most people, attempt to fabricate meaning or retreat into comforting ideologies. He accepts life as it is. This acceptance is not passive. Rather, it is an act of rebellion against the very need for meaning. The Stranger suggests that embracing absurdity may even offer a kind of freedom. By discarding illusions, Meursault experiences not only less suffering, but a form of existential liberty. This freedom from imposed or constructed meaning is the very essence of absurdist thought, and Camus captures it with striking clarity. While existentialism holds that the world is meaningless, but that humans can and must create their own meaning, absurdism, especially in Camus' version, argues that such an endeavor is inherently paradoxical. Trying to create meaning in a world that offers none is, itself, an absurd contradiction. Absurdism recognizes this tension between the search for meaning and the silence of the universe as a fundamental and unresolvable conflict. The roots of absurdism in The Stranger extend beyond Camus's philosophy into the historical and cultural context of the time, an era shaken by war, destruction, and existential crises. Camus's stark, unadorned prose reflects this world with brutal honesty. Meursault represents a man who does not surrender, does not retreat into illusion, but instead faces reality in its barest, most unfiltered form. Confronting absurdity and accepting absurdity and is neither an act of submission nor a denial of life. Rather, it is a form of awareness and awakening that can pave the way for a kind of inner freedom. This freedom is realized when a person accepts life in all its facets, without illusions or metaphysical decorations, and chooses to live on despite the absence of meaning. In this sense, The Stranger is not only a story about absurdity and alienation, but also a reflection of human consciousness awakening to its own absurd condition, and embracing the notion that absurdity may be the ultimate reality of existence. The Stranger is more than a short novel. It is a philosophical reflection on the condition of modern humanity and its internal conflicts in the face of a meaningless world. At the end of the book, the reader is not merely left with Meursault, but with a fundamental question about the meaning of life. Camus's answer, voiced through Meursault, is an invitation to accept absurdity, not with despair, but with honesty and clarity. Life, even if devoid of meaning, is still worth living. Thanks for watching.